Hello, everyone. Welcome to Backyard Eden Live. If it's your first time joining us, I thank you so much for being here. I want to thank everyone for stopping by at our live shows. I really enjoy doing them, and you never really know what's going to happen, um, what noises you'll hear in the background, and you'll never really know what I'll say. So, thank you for joining us. Your support means a lot. If you have not already subscribed, go ahead and do that now. You can click the subscribe button and make sure to hit the bell so you don't miss out on anything. Also, take a second and hit that thumbs up button. That really does help us out here. Um, all the interaction that we can get, that does help the channel out. So, thank you for that. So, this is our Tuesday night live stream. This is called Homestead Happenings. Basically, what we are going to talk about, just different things that are going around or going on here on the homestead, our little suburban homestead, if you will. And so the week's been kind of steady. Um, like most of the time, it's really busy and things are crazy and all of that. But this week's just been kind of steady so far. We've had just normal work. We've had a little bit of rain this week, which has put put a damper on some different things. It really puts a damper on doing yard work. Um, I don't need any excuses not to do yard work, but the rain does kind of help that out. So yeah, it's been kind of steady, just normal work stuff. And so I've been doing a little bit of evaluating in the garden to see what is going on, what's the next steps for the backyard garden. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about how to plan your garden over the next couple of weeks on the channel. We'll be devoting a little bit of time to that, as well as looking at some of the different things that are going in the garden and how they're doing. So that's really what we've been doing. I did get a couple of things planted and a couple of things pruned and harvested. So yeah, it's been business as usual. So let's take a look at. I want to share with you our Facebook group. So so this is our Facebook group, Backyard Eden and Friends. And if you're not already a member here, can you see that? If you're not already a member here, I'd like to invite you to join the group. It's really just a great opportunity during the week to really share with us what you're doing on your homestead, in your garden, and just really, ask questions and, maybe help teach others a few things. So I'd like to ask you to join here. And we've got some different things coming up. Here I've got this is one of the posts from the other day. We're talking about what we're going to be doing over the weekend and just different stuff like that. So, and what I will be doing, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the Pratt family homestead. Excuse me. But what they do is the day of their live stream, which is Thursdays at 9 Eastern, 8 Central Standard Time. What they do is they do their live stream on Thursdays. So it's really kind of interesting if you're not familiar with some of the other live streams. You've got the Alderman Farms, that is on Thursday at, I believe, 7 Central, so 8 Eastern, 7 Central, and then you immediately after them you have the Pratt Family Homestead. And so what they do is they put a little post on their Facebook group. If you haven't checked their group out, you can definitely check that group out as well. But they put a little post on it, and basically anything that you want to put on there, pictures, just what you've done over the week, or whatever you want to put on there, is shared on the YouTube Live. And so that's what I'm doing as well. So every week on Tuesday, sometime Tuesday during the day, I'll put a post on there, and feel free to uh, comment on it, share with us what you're doing, something neat that you've got going on, something you've harvested, something you've planted, basically anything, and I will share it in the YouTube live stream. So that's that. Also, while I've got you here, I want to also uh, promote the Homestead Dad Facebook group. If you're not familiar with Homestead Dad, Jeff is an amazing guy. He is located in Michigan, and I've had the pleasure of meeting him. And if you have not checked out his YouTube page, definitely check out his YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the description below. But here's his group as well. You can definitely just search out Homestead Dad and you can find it. But it's a really neat group. The similar thing with my our group, as well as the Pratt group as well. Just a way to connect on a weekly or a daily basis, if you will. And so really cool. So definitely check them out. I'll link everything in the description below. So that was just a look at those. Really hope that you're able to support that. Also, just want to talk about the garden and how things are doing. So after the spring slash summer, a lot of the things are a little fried, if you will. A lot of things are a little overdone, and so the tomatoes finished pretty early because of the heat. If you're not familiar with tomatoes, they really don't produce in the super hot heat. So they kind of stopped. The peppers, they kind of kept going. Of course, they love the heat. The okra did okay. It's still producing. And actually, I'm growing two different varieties of okra this year. I'm growing the burgundy okra as well as the Louisiana green velvet. And the Louisiana green velvet, that's a mouthful. It's doing spectacular. I mean, I'm not tall by any means, but it is definitely somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 foot tall, and just putting out okra like crazy. The burgundy okra is doing pretty well also. It's not quite that tall. It's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 foot tall, but it's doing pretty good as well. Um, The basil is doing pretty good. I've got different stands of basil around the garden, some in the front, some in the back. Um, so if you take a look at this picture right here, this is some of the basil that is growing in the front yard garden. I've got some of the 35-gallon black tubs. There are like feed tubs, nutrient tubs, if you will, that you can get from your local feed store. But the basil is doing really well. And this is just one set or one stand, if you will, of the basil. You can see here the green that is pictured here is Italian large leaf. I will say that it's doesn't really seem any larger than anything else, the Genovese or really any of the other basils. And it may be because it's in a container, who knows. And then I've also got some of the uh, dark opal basil. And so you can actually tell there's quite a bit of green growth on here, and it's not quite colored up to purple yet. If you're wondering why that is, it's really because you got to have sun sunlight to color that color. Um, the more sunlight you get, the darker that basil will be. The less sunlight you get, the less sunlight you get, it will have more of a green look to it. But yeah, that's doing great. I've also got uh, so I've also got the cucamelons that you can see here in this picture, along with my adorable face. The cucamelons are doing pretty good. They were planted in spring as well, and they are growing pretty crazy. If you look over, this is our privacy fence right behind this, but this is the simple DIY wired trellis. You can check that video out if you haven't already. Um, but if you look right behind it, you can see the fence. And if you look kind of diagonal behind my head, you can see that they're making their way over the fence into the neighbor's yard or into the neighbor's space. So they're doing good, and that's pretty encouraging. I did put a video up here this week talking a little bit about them and some of the issues um, that I've been having with them. So the issue I've been having with them is basically I've had flowers, just a few flowers with baby fruit, but not really. They're not really developing into actual fruit. And if you're familiar with cucamelons, they are about that big, fully grown, and they look or resemble a little watermelon. So what I've had is the little flowers, and they're just not developed. So, but definitely check that video out as well. But yeah, things are going pretty good in the garden. Um, it's time to really start planning and start thinking about not only this fall but also the spring. So springtime will be here before we know it. Fall is here, even though it's still pretty hot. Um, so yeah, I mean it's just one of those things. A garden never really stops, especially for us here in Texas. We can pretty much grow year round, and so things never really stop. I've actually got some seeds. Let's see if I can point to it here. You can actually see the seed starting shelf right here. I've actually got several things started for fall. I've got different lettuces, spinach, different things. I can't remember all of what it's over there, but they're started over there. I've also got up a little higher on the top shelf. I've got some kale and some chard and things like that I've shown in a previous video. Those will be going outside soon. And then, of course, um, broccoli and cabbage and those things will be either more will be planted, or we'll finally get some planted. And so I feel constantly like I'm behind. So, but I know it'll calm down. I know I'll be able to get it all done. It's just a matter of carving some time out and making myself do it. So, but yeah, so the fall garden is slowly, excuse me, it's slowly starting to take shape. I did get a few broccoli plants put out today, and did get a few things done here. Even though I really couldn't mow that much, I did get some mowed. With all the rain we've had, I've turned the irrigation off, and we've just been getting rain and rain and rain, which has been really good because we've needed it. So, So, how is everyone else's gardens doing? So, in addition to the cucamelons, we also have something that I'm really excited about, and that is, I don't know if anyone can guess what this is. I'll give you just a second. So, what is pictured on the screen right now? Okay, so what you see pictured here is actually uh, roselle. No, I did not say rosé. I said roselle. And basically, it is in the hibiscus family, and it is something that I planted. It is one of the three new things that I planted this year. Uh, I did a collaboration a few months back with some other YouTube channels about three new things that I'm growing this year, and one of those things was roselle. And so it's actually doing pretty good. You can see here in the picture, I've got a couple of things going on. I talk a little bit more about that in a new video that I'm putting out, but you can see that I've got what looks like two different varieties here. I've got the red stemmed and also a green stem. And so I'm interested to see and to learn more about this because I've never grown it before. And so I don't know if this red stemmed is more mature or if it's um, just two different varieties or what's going on. So really curious to see because you can look even at the flower on the green stemmed variety. You can see that there's some yellow in the flower. And so there's just some differences there. So, but I'm pretty stoked about it because this is my first time growing it. And yeah, it's doing pretty good. I actually had to get there or get out there and put some wooden stakes in the ground to help it kind of stand up. So, but it's doing pretty good. So, in addition to the roselle, I also have some peppers that are doing really good. Um, this is actually in our side vegetable garden. And what I mean by side, um, what I mean by the side vegetable garden is if you go, because we're in a neighborhood, in between the houses, there is a space, and it's basically, I'd say it's probably 12 feet, maybe, give or take 12 feet. And it's basically divided straight down the middle. You know, this side over here is for this house, this side over here is for this house. And so in the side garden is what I call it. But basically, I put in a back to Eden style garden, and I brought in a truckload of compost that I got it from one of our local cities here that's near us, and I put that in and went right to planting in it. I didn't turn the soil, I didn't do anything. I just planted directly in it, and it has been growing great. This is its third year, third year, so it's doing really good. And so these peppers are in this side garden. You can see the side of the house right here, of course. but they are doing fantastic. You can also see some stakes here kind of in the background of this picture. These pepper plants are doing really well. The tomatoes that are supposed to be tied to these stakes are doing fairly well, and they are still growing. They did not actually get cooked like the rest of the tomatoes. They actually are doing okay. They're still alive, and the problem is I didn't tie them up soon enough. So shame on me. I have a tomato jungle out there, and so the 16 I've got 16 pepper plants that are planted, that are planted in this area. Um, they're doing really good. Hi, Paul. It's good to see you here. They're doing really well, but they're kind of covered up with tomatoes, not fruit, just plant. So we're kind of curious to see how that's going to work out. Um, so we'll see. But in this picture, you can see this pepper plant is a Brazilian starfish, and it is hands down one of my favorite peppers. I have two new peppers that I started growing a couple of years ago to the already tried and true varieties, if you will. Some of the tried and true varieties I have that I grow all the time are some jalapenos. I grow cayenne. I grow serrano, and those are just kind of um, the base peppers that I grow. And then in addition to that, I grow some Thai chilies, and then I started growing the Brazilian starfish pictured here. They're a milder pepper. They're probably in the neighborhood of a cayenne as far as heat level. And then I grow a ají limon or a hot lemon, uh, and they're doing pretty good too. But I've got 16 pepper plants planted right here. You can only see this one plant, um, but they're doing pretty good. I need to get in there and trim the tomatoes back some, see if I can't tie them up. I don't know if that's going to be possible, but we'll see. We'll see if I can get anything done about that. So, um, so Paul says that his jalapenos, Tabasco, and Serrano peppers are in abundance and almost look ornamental. Yeah, I really, that's something I really kind of regretted this year. I didn't plant any Tabasco peppers. They are really pretty when they have, because what happens, what happens is you have 35, 40, 50, however many peppers on the plant, and they're all at potentially a different shade of their ripening process. So you have some green peppers, you'll have some orange, you'll have some yellow, you'll have some red, you'll have some, in my case, if I don't get to pick them quick enough, you'll have some that are dried. So, and of course, that's what he said here. Is he says I'm letting some ripen until they dry on the bush, so as to save some seeds. And that's definitely, if you think about it, if you think about nature and how nature works, the fruit, or whatever kind of plant you're talking about, the fruit that it produces, the natural kind of way about it is it stays on the plant. Some plants, obviously, they drop their fruit, and that fruit will then decompose, and of course the seed is basically planted again, and that's how the plant continues to reproduce. And then, of course, some plants, the fruit dries on the plant, and that's really, in my opinion, the best way, is just to mimic nature and just to let that take its course. So that's every year I save okra seeds, and I save pepper seeds, and I save basically any seeds that I save. That's what I let them do, is I let them kind of finish their process on the plant. So yeah, but the peppers are doing pretty good. I will say that I didn't keep up with my my fertilization schedule, and I'm horrible about it. I've said, excuse me, I've said year after year after year that I'm going to do a better job. I'm going to make a schedule and I'm going to stick to the fertilization of the pepper plants. And so that that didn't happen again. So and the reason I fertilize them on a regular kind of schedule, or I try to, is because a lot of my peppers are grown in pots, and so what you tend to run into is with rain and whatever else, you kind of leach some of the nutrients out into the soil, and so you end up losing some of that nutrients, and of course your plant's using some too, so you kind of have to replenish it. And so when I make a new pot, I repurpose the soil, and I have a video on that about how to repurpose old container soil. But I feed the soil up, and and then throughout the season, I'll give them some either fish emulsion or some organic fertilizer, some water soluble fertilizer. So, but I never keep up with the schedule. So yeah, there's that. But as far as other peppers, I don't know what other kind of peppers you're growing, Paul. But as far as other peppers that have stood out this year in our garden, daytills have really stood out. It's a pepper similar to a habanero, and the color is basically the same as an orange habanero, so it ripens to orange, and then the flavor, the flavor and the heat level are pretty much the same as an orange habanero, but I can't explain it. There's just, I don't know, everything I've always hated about an orange habanero, this does not have it. So like, in habaneros, you really get like I don't know, like sort of like, I'm horrible at describing things, but there's like that aftertaste and just sort of like the flavor profile there. Um, the Daytil has everything that's good about it and nothing that's bad about it. And the plants are absolutely huge and producing like crazy. So that'll be more than likely that'll make the cut for future years. Um, I am getting ready to start some peppers. Yes, it is. I know it is September, but I am getting ready to start some peppers. Ooh, yeah. Okay, so awesome. Paul said he started some Thai Dragon and some Texas Pekin. Nice. Um, so the Thai Dragons, are those what you would buy at the local big box stores or nurseries? Is it the same type? And then the Texas Pekin or the Chili Pekin. Yeah, I really, really like those. They pack an amazing punch. I actually grew some Pekins. Let me see if I can spell that in the chat. Ooh, Pequeno? Pequeno? Yeah, I'm not sure how to spell that. I always mess it up, but it's basically a little round pepper, and then instead of it just being completely round and like a sphere or a ball, it is round and it has like a little bird's beak, or almost like a teardrop, if you will. And you can see those the plants how they grow in some of my 2018 pepper playlist. But I'm pretty in love with that pepper as well. I did have a friend gift me some of the chili piquin seeds, so I'll probably be growing those next year as well. So that's pretty awesome that you started some peppers. So yeah, because you're, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not too far from us here, right? You're in, didn't you? I believe you said Honey Grove. I think that's what you said. So yeah, it's almost time. The reason I'm starting a few inside is I'm going to play with some hydroponics again and just see how that's going to work out. I'll probably be doing a Kratky setup. I've been kind of inspired lately by some videos I've seen, and I'll probably be trying to get back into that a little bit more. So yeah, the garden, as I was saying, is doing pretty good. There is quite a bit of maintenance I have to do, um, and along with that, there are things I have to do at the greenhouse and get those back up to running. Um, oh, okay, it took 4 weeks. 4 weeks. Wow. Okay. Um, that's crazy. I'll keep that in mind because I'm going to be starting some of those as well. So I'll keep that in mind. And yes, Honey Grove. Okay. I thought so. I couldn't remember. I'm not always the best when it comes to remembering things. But yes, I'll be starting some peppers probably in the next week or two. Once I get some of these fall veggies uh, transitioned to outside. I'm also going to be taking some cuttings of some plants. I've got a couple of things growing out there that I want to propagate for next year. I've got some longevity spinach that I'll be taking some cuttings from and propagating that for next year, um, as well as some Chinese water spinach. Excuse me, and I'll take some cuttings from that as well and propagate that for next year. The those are really great during the summertime and they produce really well, but when it comes to be fall winter time, they don't make it there because they're subtropical uh, plants. They can almost be perennial here if I was to cover them up, but I just choose to take cuttings and then I can propagate those in the house. So with that being said, I also have some other plans for the garden. So if you've seen my growing strawberries in gutters playlist, those videos, I've got two gutters already set up for strawberries. And what I'm thinking is, I'm going to buy two more gutters and use them primarily for greens. I'm trying to figure out right now. My dilemma is where I'm going to put them. Where am I going to put the gutters? Um, so I'm trying to also figure out what greens I can grow in them. So far, of course, I can do lettuce and spinach, and those are fine. But I'm thinking about adding those. And I'm also thinking about and toying with the idea of putting a raised bed in the greenhouse. Um, I'm not sure. I'm kind of toying with that. But I'll definitely be sharing videos on whatever I choose along those lines. And so definitely be looking for that. Real quick, I want to share with you our social media links. If you are not following us on our social media, we are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and Snapchat. I will say that of all of those, probably Facebook and Instagram are the most active, but we do post on Twitter, Pinterest, and Snapchat from time to time. But definitely follow us over there. And definitely try to connect with us on our Facebook group, as I mentioned earlier. All right, and also, so yes, thank you so much, Paul, for following on Facebook. That's awesome. Yeah, I know. We've had numerous conversations over there. Also, if you haven't joined our group, like I was saying, you can check it out. Um, the Facebook group, uh, the the post for today, if you have not already seen it, if you're in the group. But basically, we had one comment on it, and that's okay. The group is still kind of new. It's still kind of growing, and if you will, we have 44 members, and I didn't expect it to explode right off the bat. But our comment here is from, pardon me if I get this wrong, but I'm going to say Michelle. Um, I hope I said that right. But she did. We just want to remember the Carolinas in our prayers. Um, they are still in much need of different things there, and so just please remember them. They're in need of different supplies and different people to volunteer and bring those things in. So definitely just remember those people that were affected in your prayers and in your thoughts. And if you can help in any way, whether that be donating of things, supplies, or if it's donation, a donation of your time. If you live near the area, please consider doing that. It would help them tremendously, and I know that they will be forever grateful for just someone that is willing to help. And so definitely um, look for a way that you can help. And remember, excuse me, like I said, if you want to have something shown in the live stream, just make sure to comment on the weekly post, and it will be put into the live stream. I will say though, however, make sure that it is appropriate. Make sure it's family friendly and all of that, because you never know who's going to be watching. So definitely keep that in mind. Um, so that's kind of where we're at for the week. I will share that I've got some sourdough starter that I started, I guess, about a week ago. That's one of my kind of special little projects. I'm hoping, I've been saying this for some time now, but I'm hoping to get up and running at our local farmers market with the sourdough. So I've been saying it for a while, but that's the goal. I think we have uh, 4 more markets, maybe. Could be less this year, but hopefully I can get in and get some sourdough rolling. I've got 4 starters, so hopefully I can get that going, and we can start sharing the sourdough around. So, what what else do you have going on, Mr. Paul? You've got some pepper started, and that's pretty awesome. I know we talked the other day, and you said you weren't going to really grow a whole lot for fall. But what are some of your plans for the spring? Um, Maybe a little too early for some people, but I'm already thinking about spring. And as I said earlier, we'll be doing a couple of videos on how to plan your garden a little better, because I know I can be a little bit spastic at times, and so some things don't get organized or done in the right order or always in the right way. when it comes to gardening. So I know in the spring I'm gonna try my best at not having wasted space. And I'll give you an example of that. In the garden this year, I had a couple of things go um, a little awry, if you will. So this year I planted. Well, actually, so let's back up. In years past, I've planted different things. So I've planted tomatoes pretty much every year. I like tomatoes. Uh, Hi, Katrina. It's good to see you. Hi from the other room. um, so in years past, I've grown tomatoes pretty much every year. It is one of the things that I really like to grow. I like tomatoes. Um, my family really does not. They don't like fresh tomatoes, and so my daughter and all my kids really like. I was going to say my oldest daughter, but really all of them like tomatoes in the common form of ketchup, but not fresh raw tomatoes. So I've in years past I've grown different varieties and tons of different tomatoes, and I've had pretty successful years. I've had years that weren't so successful. Um, 2 years ago, I grew 50 tomato plants. Yes, I said 50. 50 tomato plants. Um, and I grew quite a number of them were cherry tomatoes, and then some of them were regular sized tomatoes. And they didn't all do very good. So they, in years past, they haven't always done that great. And so this past year, I went ahead and just planted like five, five cherry tomatoes. And so that's pretty big difference between 50 and five. And so this year, this spring, the year that we're in right now, I planted somewhere around 25 plants. And I will say I was trying to kind of split the difference and be successful, and no shocker, wasn't really successful. I did have some of the plants do pretty well, but really the majority of them just didn't do that great. Um, Now, granted, we did have a super hot summer and it got hot real quick, but I can't contribute my tomato failure or my lack of tomato success, however you want to look at that, whether you're glass half full, glass half empty kind of, whether you want to look at it each way, but I can't really contribute that just to the heat. Um, I did get a little bit of a late start planting them, but some of them did good, but the majority did not. So moving forward, and that's kind of what we're going to be talking about in these upcoming videos. But moving forward, I'm going to plan my garden a little differently. Things that have not worked out great in the past for me will be kind of put off to the side a little bit. And so I'm already going to just go out and on a limb and just say I'm planting really just cherry tomatoes next year because they seem to do the best. But I'm planting 10 tomato plants at the most. Because I'm devoting all this space, all this time. I mean, it takes time uh, to tie a tomato plant up. It takes time to prune a tomato plant because And the ones that did the best this year, I will say, I'm not afraid to say it, the ones that did the best are the ones that I single stemmed on the super easy DIY tomato trellis that I built and put a video out about. Those are the ones that did the best. So it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort and really a lot of patience to prune them back and to tie them up. And so, with that being said, the amount of work that goes into it is not outweighing. I mean, the fruit, the food that I'm getting from it is not outweighing the work. And so next year, 10 tomatoes, 10 cherry tomatoes. I may uh, play with the idea of having some determinate tomatoes, just a small kind of group of them, planting them early in the greenhouse so that I get a early jump on things, and then have them in containers, obviously, so that I can move them out into the yard and hopefully have a early, super early harvest of paste tomatoes, or maybe a small slicing tomato, so that we can make some tomato sauce and some different things like that. But I've kind of toyed with that idea, kind of thought about that. I'm looking at varieties. If you know a variety that fits those kind of criteria, I'd love to hear about them. But that's kind of where we're at. So the 25 tomatoes I planted this year, uh, the 25 tomatoes I planted this year, that's easily, 30 to 40 square feet of garden space, because of the way I pruned them and all of that. So that's going to be space that I'm going to be able to devote to other things. Um, likewise, on the same note as that, um, and I don't know if Paul would agree with this, if he's kind of realized some of the things that maybe don't do well, if he's kind of backed off of it or not. But it, I don't know. It's just not the time that goes into it's just not worth doing if you're not going to get fruit in return. So squash, I love squash. Our whole family loves squash, and we eat squash like crazy when we grow it. But shame on me, I didn't plant any squash this year. I had some squash plants started in the very beginning of spring that I started in the greenhouse. Those I sold some of them off to friends and things like that at work, and then ended up letting the rest of them die in the greenhouse. Um, the greenhouse got really hot and killed my squash plants. So I didn't plant any squash. Now that wasn't necessarily the way I had it planned, but the squash, we always have squash bugs, and I don't know if you've struggled with it as much as I have, but squash bugs are like a plague. Last year I had, let me see, how many plants did I have last year? I think I had something like 40 squash plants in our small garden. They were spaced out, just different locations and this and that. They all had plenty of room, and they were all actually doing pretty well. They were all giving me squash, and they were doing real good. But come, I would say, middle of June, I started getting hit with squash bugs, like bad. And so when I went to go and I would go to harvest a squash, I would see squash bugs, and I don't know, bugs just doesn't describe it. There were just so many out there that I essentially, in a matter of a week, I, I lost the whole squash patch, if you will. So there's that. So I do need to figure out a way, because we do love squash. We do eat a lot of squash. I do need to figure out a way to get that into the garden sooner, and so that I can get it out sooner. So planting the garden is definitely going to be a priority. Another thing, while we're talking about planting the garden, is I will not be growing um, peppers in the same abundance that I've grown in the past. So this year I had somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 pepper plants. I believe it was actually 104 when it was all said and done. And those were planted in a variety of ways. They were planted in raised beds, they were planted in pots, they were planted in the Back to Eden garden. Uh, and so all doing fairly well. But have you picked peppers from 100 plants? Yeah, I didn't think that through. So, and the just the varieties and things like that, I'm gonna be thinking a little bit better about what varieties to grow, how many to grow. So I'm probably gonna reduce that number quite a bit for next season. So definitely, um, take some time and think about your garden, see where you're at, what grows good for you, what grows, just horrible, or what pest you have, and all of that. Yeah, definitely, Paul. Definitely. Yeah, I've been there. I've just talked about three of my recent seasons, and and I've had good seasons and I've had bad, but I've definitely been thinking about just my future with tomatoes. And so Paul was saying he planted 4 tomato plants, and all season he only got 3 tomatoes. So yeah, definitely. I definitely agree that it can be a waste of time and money. There's a fun little meme that circulates during spring on Facebook and different social medias that you spend all the I can't exactly remember the exact sayings and stuff on there, but it's basically you spend all this time and money to save like $2.50 or something. It's pretty funny. If you get a chance to see it, you should definitely look at it and laugh because it's true. You can spend a lot of time and money on tomatoes, and and tomato. And I'm not gonna lie. I mean, anyone who has gardened or has ever even considered a garden, they know that there is very few things that are better than a fresh tomato from the garden. Um, there's just something about slicing into a fresh tomato from the garden. And so, with that being said, so I will still grow some. I will not devote my entire spring and actually most of the late part of winter to growing these tomatoes because I start them indoors. Generally about 8 to 10 weeks before it's time to plant them out. And so I'm devoting all that time. I'm sure Paul's the same way. You devote all that time and effort to baby them and to, care for them. And then, you get, very, very small harvest. And so it's something that you got to think about. And so I hope that people will come back and watch and join us for our Planting Your Garden series that'll be coming out real soon. I'll be starting on the first video in the series probably in the next week or so. But we are going to wrap it up there, guys. It has been a fun time chatting about gardening and just different things that are going and growing here. I hope you enjoyed it too. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you are not already subscribed, do that now. We definitely post different videos each week on how to grow different things and just updates on how things are just, how they're doing here. So definitely subscribe, and I will see you 1 week from tonight. If all goes well, if all is good here, we will be back 1 week from tonight. That is 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And definitely check out the Facebook group. And if you want anything shared in the YouTube live, put something on there. As well as coming up on Thursday, we do a Thursday morning live show. It is at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, and we use that time to talk about prepping and all things related to being prepared. We talk about food storage, we talk about bug out bags, and just different stuff there. So definitely join us at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time on Thursday. Also, if you are looking for other live streams to check out, I'll be putting some different links in the description below. Definitely check those live streams out as well. And that's pretty much where we'll leave it there, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that if you're still growing stuff in your garden, that it's doing well. And I will see you next time. Have a great night, guys.